Koval with the Iona College Spotlight. With me today is special guest, senior editor at the Wall Street Journal, Christopher John Farley.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. So my first question for you is, what or who inspired you to pursue journalism?
Well, my parents inspired me. My parents were both professors at the State University of New York at Brockport. My mother taught African American Studies, and my dad taught economics. And they were both writers. They've both written books. My dad wrote a number of books, and I was always inspired by their scholarship, by their writing, by their teaching, and I wanted to go into journalism in a way, into writing, to emulate them and be someone who was involved in the craft of words and reaching other people.
How has the journalism career or the field changed since you've been in it?
Oh, it's changed drastically, and I think many fields change, but journalism has gone through a lot of changes in the last decade or two. The biggest change, of course, is the web. When I first started at Time magazine way back in 1993, the web was not as dominant as it is now. People were emailing, but not much else. Today, in order to succeed, you really have to be someone who's plugged into the web, who's plugged into social media, who knows how to do a story that's going to reach people on the web and spread the word about stories you're doing on print on the web. If you don't do that, you really can't reach new readers. And also, we're seeing journalistic enterprises that are just wholly on the web. That's something that wasn't there even when I joined the Wall Street Journal just a few years ago. So I think it's been exciting to see. Some people view it as a threat, but I think it really is an opportunity for news weeklies, news magazines, newspapers, news sources to really grow and reach new audiences and cover things in fresh ways.
Okay. Leading into that, the new web for journalism, can you tell me a little bit about the Wall Street Journal Cafe?
Yeah, I do a thing called the Wall Street Journal Cafe. In the beginning, it really wasn't a cafe. We used to have people come into our studio, wasn't studio, our cafe at the Journal. That when we were all the way down at Wall Street, Annie DeFranco came in, Tom Morello from Raging Against the Machine. They just bring a guitar and they just play something. And pretty soon, when we moved up into Midtown, when News Corp bought the Journal, we have a fancy new studio there, and we began to bring in other guests. Adele came in and performed, and she was just fantastic. She did 2 songs and sat for an interview. John Legend just come in and performed. He was also great, and Tony Bennett. And what's great about the Wall Street Journal Cafe is that people perform their songs acoustically. So just them and a piano, or just them and a guitarist. And you can really hear their voices and the nuances. And a lot of this stuff is lost in all the production noises and instrumentation and the junk you sometimes see surrounding them when they're on TV or in concert. So it really brings the music, it makes the music fresh again for the listener.
Okay. You've interviewed many people throughout your career. Do you have a favorite interview and why?
I think one of my favorite interviews is a story that I worked on in collaboration with another writer, Jim Wilworth, at Time magazine. It was a story on Sharif Kuzan, who was a teenager who was wrongfully imprisoned in New Orleans on death row for a crime he almost certainly did not commit. And working on that story and that profile on him, I thought I think it helped get him off from this charge. It contributed to that, and it gave insight into the whole topic of kids on death row, of juvenile offenders who are facing the death penalty, a much-needed subject to explore. But in terms of celebrities I've talked to, I've talked to everyone from Radiohead to Bob Dylan, and they're all sort of fascinating in their own way. I mean, Aretha Franklin was great to spend time with. Adele certainly was great to talk to, and I've talked to Christina Aguilera, who's also very interesting. I always find each celebrity interesting in their own way. If you ask them the right questions, they'll say something fascinating.
Okay. If you could interview anyone, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Well, I think if I could interview anyone, dead or alive, and that's a tough question. It would probably be someone, maybe Jesus, or Albert Einstein. It would probably be some figure on that level. And Martin Luther King is someone I'd love to spend some time with and find out more about how he developed his philosophy of nonviolence and how it changed and his thoughts on the Vietnam War. And you're always thinking of some folks like that and wanting to know more about them. You know, in my own, but personally speaking, I would have loved to have interviewed Bob Marley, because I wrote a book about him where I talked to everyone that knew him, his wife, his bandmates, his kids, but never talked to him because he died long before I began the book. So I would have loved to have been able to talk to him to complete that book.
Okay. You've written for magazines, newspapers, novels, you've been an editor. What's your favorite position in the career field that you've had, or what's your favorite medium to write for?
Well, I do love writing novels. I think it's an exciting medium to work in. You get to really present your thoughts in a complete kind of way. I love writing for the web because it's new, it's fresh. I mean, back in the day, you had these new journalists like Tom Wolfe creating new forums. I feel like online now, we're doing the same kind of thing, whether it's the WHA Cafe, whether it's an online cartoon that I'm co-writing. I get to do kind of crazy, interesting, newsworthy things online. But if you have to ask my favorite job, and I'm not just sucking up, I love teaching at Iona, because it's great to sort of see the next generation of journalists and what's on their minds, what they want to cover, how they might cover it. So it's exciting to come here every day and sort of get their ideas and see how journalism will be changed in the future after I'm long retired.
And do you have any advice for the future generation of journalists?
Yeah, I would say the best writers and editors are readers. Read widely, read deeply, read books, read magazines, read websites, have a lot of words flowing through your system, and you'll have a better idea on how to cover things in the future. And also, get to know your fellow students at Iona. Some of the best contacts I ever had at school were people that I met at school. The best contacts in journalism I ever had are people I met at school. You keep in touch with them later, they tell you things, they give you story ideas. One is great as a person to know a lot of different people, but also I think professionally it's good to have a lot of contacts. So really immerse yourself in school life here at Iona. It'll pay dividends for you later on when you're in the job world. And even if it doesn't actually pay professional dividends, it's just great to have a lot of friends.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm Amanda Koval for the Iona College Spotlight.